So yeah, we had talked about the financial side of things, and now we were talking about the hiring people. One question I had, and this is what I'm running into a lot of trouble is, how do you get past when, let's say, you're interviewing someone, right, or you're looking at someone's CV, a resume, and so they will obviously, they'll say, yeah, I'm great, I can do this, I can do that, but then when you hire them, you realize they aren't quite as great and they can't do all of that. So, did you run into that kind of problem, and then how did you deal with that?
Um, Honestly, Vivek, no. The first few hires were good. Today, our hiring process is actually 3-4 rounds of interview, and again, as I said, at least I am very data focused person. So it's not that we are making any objective calls. We are actually any subjective calls. We are actually making very objective calls. The first call, the first interview is actually for a techie. I'm saying, right? We are actually doing series of coding that we ask the person to do while on the interview itself. Then we give an assignment. Then there is a separate third-party coding that we get done. Then I speak with them, right? So from the tech side, it's not that we have come across people who said that they can do something and they can't. They can do what they say they will do. Sometimes the match is not perfect in the sense what they do is kind of adjacent to what we do, but not necessarily what we do. So we make a call that will this person be able to do or learn this skill. That is a judgment which we make. On that judgment, we can go wrong, but it's we give ourselves kind of benefit of doubt that if it's 20-25% of hiring mistakes, that's fine. That is what you will always end up having. Not to be very harsh on ourselves, not to be very harsh on the person we have got, because that person works in a team, and a typical project team would be about 4 people. So which is led by 4-5 people who have been working with us for a couple of years, right? So to that extent, the project lead's responsibility is to get that person to the speed. It won't happen in first month. It will happen. It might take 6 months, but we are okay with that kind of process. And we give ourselves that okay, 25% mistake. It is okay to happen. When we have made more mistakes is maybe hiring on the sales side, etc. And it is much more subjective. So we have gotten salespeople, kind of get disheartened, if they don't have quick wins, etc. Or we have got salespeople for US, which need to work on their time zone, which wasn't that easy, and there have been people who have come and gone, etc. Those challenges have been there. We don't think we have, kind of eliminated those challenges. We try to do our best, but we just try to see that, the same mistakes are not repeated. But on the tech side, it is, it's, and we get, for good or for bad, a lot of techies actually dream of working on AI and the computer vision side. So to that extent, they enjoy the work, and there is lots to learn. Not only from us, but we learn every day. On the AI side, there's so much happening that if you have enough work, the techies are actually very happy doing that. So we see very low churn on the tech side of it. On the other side, we have made mistakes. We have seen people coming and failing, but not necessarily on the tech side.
So to summarize, basically, a very good interviewing process, rigorous interviewing process, which helps you find the right people.
And it has improved. It has improved. So it wasn't good, but it's improved.
Yeah, and that's really the mistake I made in the beginning, where I, just being how small I was, I didn't have quite as rigorous interview process and then also I was. It's a long story, but I actually was working with a third party software development outfit, which actually ended up doing a horrible job, and I had to leave them, and I lost a lot of money and time also, and then I had to get with other people and hire them. And even there, I had struggles. So It can be a challenging business. I've spoken to the other podcasts that I've done. Pretty much everyone had this problem. You're the only ones now who's hasn't run into this in any amount of a significant way, but all the others had very major problems in this area. Which is why I'm bringing this up, because we're trying to talk about what we've been through so that the viewers can learn from it, learn from it and not make the same mistakes. So
Very good.
what about third parties? Hello. Uh, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Please go ahead. Sorry.
No, yeah. So what I was saying was, what about third parties? Like, so as I mentioned, I went to this software developing third party, which ended up being basically disastrous. So, uh, how do you deal with these third parties? And I'm guessing you have service level agreements and contracts and whatnot. But any challenges you face? Anything that our viewers can learn from your experiences with hiring and dealing with third parties?
So, our business to that extent, Vivek, is simpler because customers give us, an AI to deploy. And for that AI, the only two key ingredients are the hardware, which is the GPUs, which Nvidia manufactures, and the second is the software, which is completely in-house. So it is Nvidia GPUs and software, which is completely in-house. So on the software side, we don't do outsource anything. The entire IP is ours. We filed for patent as well on few processes that we innovate, but we don't outsource anything on the software side. Whatever we need, we try and develop it in house. On the Nvidia hardware side, we are among the maybe the bigger ones of who procure Nvidia GPUs in India. So they have 3-4 large distributors. We work with 2 of their authorized distributors in India. They are happy to kind of give us whatever they can give. Um, not really a plus because it's a hardware which is made by Nvidia, which works in a way and form that it is expected to work. Lucky that extent to that extent, but I really understand what you are talking about. Had we outsourced part of our tech, it would have been a disaster. But we couldn't have done that because we are a tech company. So what are we actually trying to build? So kind of that's a my mistake.
So good. So basically, you didn't have to go that with third party approach. So you didn't run into problems because you didn't really get into all of that. All right, that's great. I mean, the less you can third party outsource, I think it's better almost. Obviously, it depends on the situation you're in and third party.
On the business that you are in, right? We only require hardware. And everything else we do on top of it. So that is the only thing
And Nvidia is like as good as it gets nowadays.
as good as it gets. Yes, there are challenges with sometimes the GPUs are so high on demand that you will have a longer lead time, but that's okay.
Yeah, there's some shipping issues or supply chain. So tell me, I had a technical question. I often wondered this because I know in like crypto mining you use GPUs as opposed to CPUs. So why GPUs? Can you explain that to me? And I'm sure a lot of viewers also learn about this. Is why in things like crypto mining and AI we use GPUs as opposed to say the usual CPUs that are there in laptops and
I'll try to make it slightly simpler. What actually a CPU does is do things in series at a very efficient rate, right? Like for example, if you have to do a bunch of calculations, depending on the number of cores, right? A CPU will have 12 cores, 16 cores maximum. So you can do 16 things parallelly. So if you have to do 32 things, these 16 things have to get finished and then you will do the next 16. So that is what a normal CPU would do. GPU is very different because it doesn't do series-wise computation that efficiently, but it does a lot of parallel computations. To give you an example, it can do even a billion computations parallelly. So in an AI or a crypto, where you are actually doing nothing but a lot of series, a lot of computations, AI is, in a nutshell, just matrix multiplications. A series of numbers, long numbers, you're just multiplying with each other and millions of them. Millions of parameters, billions of parameters. When you're doing millions and billions of parameters, you can't wait for things to happen and in a series. Even if inefficient, can you do billions of them in one go, then stack the another million on top of that, and that's how you optimize it. So GPU for AI, crypto, etc. Simply because it can do, it's a different architecture, right? Honestly, it's a different architecture. So because it can do a lot of computations in one go, that's the product of choice. In normal computations, when we are using things that we use typically our computers for, you won't know that difference. But to give you a sense, if you have to do, say, an object detection, if I take a picture of us talking, and if I have to identify how many people are there, it is actually looking at the image, and there is if it's a 2 megapixel, 2 million into 3, 6 million parameters are there inside this picture. That 6 million parameter needs to be analyzed to identify where are the two human beings in this picture. Now that can take, if a non-accelerated CPU, it can take up to 1 second, 2 seconds to analyze one picture, while it will take, on a good sized GPU about 20 milliseconds. So it is 100 times possibly faster than CPU on the same computation. So that is.
So what are the tasks that a CPU is better than a GPU?
CPU is better at almost everything than parallel computation. So if you don't have large numbers to multiply, if you're not playing high-end gamings where each pixel needs to kind of come out with an absolute level of clarity, if you are not running crypto mining where again it's large computations, CPU is better. As a rule of thumb, CPU is better. It has been efficiently come to this level over a 50-60 year period of Intel's R&D and AMD and all those kind of things. GPU is a recent phenomenon. Even to accelerate stuff, it's not that you have GPU and you will be able to accelerate. Even to accelerate stuff, there are processes that you need to know. It's not that you have a GPU and you will be able to do some of those stuff. You'll have to set it up. You'll have to optimize for it. What is the type of parallel operation that you're talking about? The parallel operation that you would require would be very different from the parallel operation that I require. You'll have to set up a lot of things. CPU is much more intuitive, much more easy, good for broad range of work, and it works extremely robustly.
So since we are getting now on the technical side of things, can I ask what are the typical AI languages nowadays? Back when I was in college ages ago, it was Lisp. So obviously things have probably changed now. Can you speak to what's typically in the market? What's the popular languages for AI?
Yeah, most of the work is done in Python. Python is not that fast, unfortunately. C++. So you'll have stuff done in C++ and used as a binding in Python. But Python is the language of choice because every library that you would want to use, it's all there. You just have to call those libraries and you are on your way, right? That is, it's not because Python is so beautiful. It is because the ecosystem got established in Python. But otherwise, if one has to choose a language, for things like AI, where speed actually is what makes a difference, I think C++ would have been the more obvious choice. But not really. People have C++, but they use it as a binding on Python, which reduces the speed by about 20. Yeah. So Python, to answer you honestly,
Any
Everything gets done in
alternatives to
Python.
Python, or pretty
C++,
much
C++.
C++ or Python? How about the
Now,
database? Like, what databases are the best for AI, or does it matter?
I think doesn't matter. Today the databases are, I wouldn't want to say commodity, but at least whatever use cases you have, there is a good set of database that is available with everyone. Any of the database, right? Relational, non-relational. It really depends on your use case. All of them are available on cloud for you to, kind of experiment with, see what works best for you. Migrating from one to another is also not that tricky. And especially for us, where the metadata is few. The real problem is in generating those metadata. Where are people in this image? That is the trickier part. Running it on client side, that's the trickier part. To do it on edge and getting the optimization done, the database, etc. We use a range of database. Everything else, everything that you can think of, and most of them can be easily accessed with Python. There are libraries that you can easily call. So that, at least for us, is everything goes.
Nice, nice. So continuing on with the tech side of it, how I think your AI is more based on vision part of it. So could you speak to that a little bit? Back in, I want to add this little bit. In my college days, I did a part of a research project where we had this model car, and what we were doing back then was we had these Polaroid sensors that we put on them, and then we were kind of just trying to make it sense how, where it was, and if it was going to crash into something, it would stop or it would make a turn. So, but obviously things have improved since then. So, but the basic idea was basically this: that the sensors would throw out a beam of sound, basically ultrasound, and we'd get the echo back, and then from that we'd compute what was going on, right? So, is that essentially what's going on here, or is things fundamentally changing?
Things fundamentally changed. And it changed from 2012 onwards, and the trend has only gotten stronger. So I don't know how much you know about the history of some of these things, but there used to be a challenge called ImageNet challenge. So
I'm
where
sorry,
you would be
what
have
challenge?
ImageNet.
ImageNet.
So it would be millions of pictures, and you have to come up with an algorithm which identifies what is in that picture correctly. Right. So it was ongoing for a long time. In 2012, um, you know, um, an algorithm which was based on deep learning, and I'll come to what deep learning is, trumped everything else by a margin. Otherwise, the improvement was being made in 1% every year, right? They, I think, kind of beat the second place team by about 9%. It was that much better, and that is when people started realizing that all this, kind of broad machine learning um, is not the right way to do it. The challenges still remain in terms of, because it was compute heavy. That was a very different radical approach called deep learning. It was compute heavy. So, and to compute heavy, how do you actually do it? CPU was inadequate, and which is when Nvidia's GPU kind of started coming in vogue because it could do parallel operations. Um, what is fundamentally changed is today there is little to less supervision or manual intervention in what you are trying to analyze. So you get an image. Imagine how I would make sense out of it. Right? So it is getting an image. It is getting the colors, mixtures, everything going inside. It's somehow doing processing, and finally understand that okay, there is few stuff in this picture. That's exactly what we try to replicate. That you have something called neurons. Those neurons are responsible for small interpretation of the image that has been given. So there would be first layer of neurons, there would be second layer, third layer, fourth layer, depending on what your architecture is. Now, when that image is given as a, so for a 2 megapixel, there would be 2 million pixels multiplied by 3 RGB, right? So there is 6 million input that is coming in one image. That 6 million input is given in form of a matrix to the first layer. The first layer learns something, passes it on to second layer, and so on and so forth. And the final layer finally makes a prediction. And there is two people in this. That prediction is then compared with what actually is happening. So that is called the supervision. So if I am the supervisor, I'm actually saying that okay, you predicted 0 people, but in this image there is 2 persons. There are 2 persons, right? So you are off by some parameter, and then it goes back, tries to reduce the loss. So this is called a loss. So loss in accuracy or loss in what it is, kind of predicted vis-a-vis the actual. That loss it tries to minimize. So there is a backward propagation, and after iterations, depending on how many iterations you want, it kind of comes out and says that okay, there are 2% with this level of confidence, and I say that okay, your loss is say 0.1, and that 0.1 is the threshold which you have kept, which means that this model is now ready to be used with a certain set of accuracy. So what are the important parameters here? How do we set the loss model? How deep do we make the architecture? What is the level of accuracy that we want? How much is the data given? But importantly, there is no overlaying of my judgment that I'm putting on the architecture. The architecture is supposed to interpret what it wants to interpret. So maybe the first layers are just identifying how many vertical lines are there or how many horizontal lines are there. But deeper and deeper architecture towards the latter end is when it tries to look for features in a person. But I have not done anything in this. What it does is, Vivek, it makes prediction generalizable. That the way I am making this architecture to understand person, that's the same type of architecture that I can make it to identify a mobile phone. I don't need to, or a car, or anything for that matter, right? I don't need to put my judgment, my intuition, my understanding on top of it. So to that extent, whatever I learn from learning from our time of birth, and once we look at 10 different things and understand that this is headphone and 11th headphone, even if it doesn't look like any of the 10 headphones, we can make an assertion that this is a headphone. That's the same level of generalization that you can reach, provided it has seen enough set of data.
Nice. So, how about video images? So, let's say I'm getting a live stream from a video camera, or like what we're doing right now, for example. So, would it? I guess it's just the same thing, but now you have multiple images.
That's right. That's it. So a typical CCTV video will work at 25 frames per second or 30 frames per second. So, but imagine the complexity. One frame will have 6 million images. In 1 second, if you are working at 25 frames, it is 150 billion parameters. If I'm taking 1 minute, it's 150 to 60, which is 9 billion. It's 9
So
billion
obviously,
parameters.
to do that, you'll have to do some sort of a sampling thing.
No, that is where the technology is moving. The Nvidia GPUs are rock stars. They are not a trillion-dollar company for nothing. It works. It works. Some of the good GPUs can even take feeds from 50 cameras in one go and give you a real-time analysis.
Wow.
They are costly, of course, but they are there. They are there. Nobody else can touch them, right? That's why they are monopoly. People keep trying, but Nvidia is such a great hardware company that made it possible.
Right. Wow. So going back to my example of the car, so in that we didn't really have so much of image as it was just a distance echo prediction. So coming to say something like a self-driving car, what happens there? Because I mean, are we still doing image processing, or in a self-driving car, it's more about just calculating the distances and you don't really care about the image?
So again, I'm not an expert in it, but from what I understand of Tesla, it is mostly images.
Oh, it's images.
Mostly images. There are different approaches that people are using. but there are cameras everywhere in a Tesla self-driving car. It is trying to make sense out of
It's environment.
every environment from every angle and giving you a sense of how I would interpret it.
Right.
And can it do it better than human eye? Surely. With enough data, it can do better than human
For
eye.
sure.
But just the burden of proof of technology is higher than a burden of proof on a human. That you are allowed to make mistake. Technology's mistake is sometimes less accepted. That is why it is. But otherwise, a pure image, making sense out of image from all angles is what, at least in my mind, Tesla is doing, and it is better than human eye, I could say, as much as I know.
Yeah, and it'll only get better with time, I guess.
Yeah, but some of the judgment call is where it comes, right? That as a human being, even if I can make interpretation, there is some judgment that I will make which will be different from you. So maybe I make better judgment than you on car driving, or you make better judgment. Here it will be uniform. So to that extent, when we say better than human eye, which human eye? Which human eye with what sort of judgment? Those are, there is no easy answer to that.
Right.
That's why it's burden of proof.
Right. Well, coming back to the entrepreneurial side of things, how what are the big opportunities in AI right now for, say, an entrepreneur who wants to get into it? What might he focus on?
In my opinion, consumer side of AI will be dominated by global biggies, um, because it is not that critical. Plus, you know, to sell to each of the individual is a big one, right? There is a virality factor in consumer side of businesses.
But when you say
Like for
consumer side, what do you mean exactly?
like if I'm using an AI app, I would assume that would come from Google or Facebook or somebody of that sort. A Google Lens that would come from Google. That's less likely to come from somebody. A, they have distribution, they have data, to anything else. So on the consumer side of AI, or even if I'm taking a picture and I just want to see how will I look 80-year-old, right? It is AI, or how would I have looked at when I was 20 years old? That's AI. Those kind of things, right? Which is what I mean the consumer side of business. AI, it's not critical. It's not that I will go back when I'm 80-year-old and say, okay, I didn't look like this, hence I'm unhappy about it. No, it's not. It's okay. It's fun. I will use what is good and what works. The business side of it is very different. The business side of it, you'll have to think of it exactly as IT services businesses. That in your manufacturing process, if I say, and somebody has to wash his hands before he touches the machine. In my business, somebody has to touch the machine and wash his hands, right? There is a huge difference on how do I make the AI, how do I customize it for your requirement. Then in some of these sectors, when we are only giving the number of people in the queue, there needs to be an understanding of where is the queue starting. People are roaming all around the place to go to a check-in desk, right? What is the queue? Where is the queue? How do we customize? How do we draw boundary and make the code realize that this is the only area where you should count the queue, right? So all of that requires customization. The second part of it is, after customization, what? So if somebody is not following the SOP, what do I do? I have to integrate with your process. That if a person has not washed his hands and touched the machine, what then? There needs to be some certain action that needs to be tested. It needs to come to you as an alert. It needs to be in your ERP saying that there are so many violations during the day, XYZ. Now, once you make that integration, that's a difficult one for you to move out. So the switching cost is high. To that extent, there would be many IT services company. To that extent, there would be many AI services company, which is where we fit in, right? So, if I zoom out, I see 2030, for example, would every organization be using more AI than today? Yes, surely, maybe 100 times more. Will it be only Google and Facebook serving their needs? By all means, no. There would be hundreds of companies Um, in my opinion, Indian companies will have an advantage because you need to do customization. You have people, the same IT service advantage.
We've already been doing that 30 years. It's just
We've
different.
already been. It's a different business, but it's on the same.
Right. We've got the
Has
infrastructure in place for it. And
yeah. So that is the next leg of what an IT services company should do, and that is
because,
the leg of.
that's very valuable information, and I hope all the viewers are getting that. And, people who are maybe searching for an idea, well, here's a great idea for you where you can do customization of AI for companies. So, what? But what are the typical sort of general areas? Like, I'll give you an idea of what I'm trying to ask you, which is typically if you ask a person is AI, they'll think first thing they'll think, this Terminator movies where the machines take over the world, Terminator, Matrix, all that, and then once you sort of get past that, they'll think stuff like self-driving cars, image recognition. These are kind of the household names of where AI gets applied. But in reality, it could be anything, everything from like the example you gave of washing your hand. Just check if, like a restaurant checks if the waiter washed his hands or not. To any sort of manufacturing process or anything really. Yeah. So, but are there certain like areas or domains of that AI will really be in, or really it's just anything, everything could be AI?
So, what is the end state of a computer vision? Whatever human eye could do. Now, if you think about a manufacturing facility or an industrial facility or a retail facility, there are many processes which are done by human eye. Can that shift to AI? Yes, but I'm not saying about shifting. It is basically, can it give you more data to enable you to do your job better? That if you're handling or inspector of one restaurant, can you be inspector of 10 restaurants? Yes, surely you can be. Like in a dock, if we are working with a warehouse is one of big segments that we work in. So if there are 15 docks where trucks come and load and unload, etc., etc. If there are 15 inspectors earlier, those 15 inspectors would be checking how many boxes have gone in and gone out. That you will get by AI. Today, they get this thing of that out of this 15, box number 22nd, 25th, and 80th get damaged. Now that's an additional insight which was earlier not available, which they can act upon. Okay, 80th box is damaged. I shouldn't be sending a damaged box, or I shouldn't be receiving a damaged box. Can it help them raise a ticket to resolve that issue? Yes, that's the type that we're talking about. In most of our clients, we work on health and safety part of it. Health and safety is that if you are in an area where you're not supposed to be, you are an intruder. If you are not wearing hard helmet while doing some processes, that's a violation. So most of those stuff are kind of customizable to a client.
But that's just vision, right? And obviously, your startup is vision oriented. But human senses, there are 5 senses, right? Touch, taste, smell, vision, audio. And then, of course, I would like to say there's also, I would say the word intuition, but more sort of just learning from the environment and extrapolating or intrapolating or whatever the case may be. So, so what about some of these other aspects of mimicking human behavior?
So again, my view, I could be completely off, but whatever doesn't require customizations or deployment, differences, will go in the hands of global majors, global biggies. Like for example, OK Google or a Siri or a Alexa. They are example of understanding language, voices, right? I don't think there exists a capability within us or within me to make a device which is better than them. At best, I can make an equivalent device, but then how do I sell it? And why would you buy my device? What's the my fixed cost? How do I amortize it among so many people? I just can't. Alexa can spend billions of dollars in R&D because it will have billions of customers. I can't do that. So whatever like a chat GPT is, can we ever think of making better than chat GPT? How will I get data? How will I do that? So some of these things, where it is not customizable for one person, one industry. I think for lack of better words, a Chinese or US tech majors, in my opinion, would kind of come up with solutions to that.
Well,
But wherever it,
well,
yes,
possibly
sorry.
a startup could come up with it and then sell it to them as the
Yeah,
end.
yeah, 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 absolutely. So yes,
But to go all the way and become another
yes, to
Apple or
go
another
all the way,
Google,
like
that's
yes,
tough. That's
yes,
definitely
I
tough.
can come up. We can come up with a great architecture, great insight,
Right.
which was missing, and show it on a prototype that this is how it will work, and then be part of a Google or a Facebook fold or a Baidu or some, depending on
Whatever.
which geography, yeah, whatever the case. But to take it all the way and to have that development done so that we are able to sell millions of stuff, so that the cost is amortized over that many. I think the entire business cycle will have challenges. So you rightly
But
picked up. That's where the
but to
insight is.
to a lot of startups, that's a great scenario. They make something, they sell it to a bigger company and get leave with a lot of
But
money.
how do you get those insights? It's not that
I never
easy.
said it's easy,
Yeah,
but I mean
yeah,
that's
no,
just a strategy or a path they could possibly take or think of. Is all I'm trying to say.
yes, absolutely. But to have a greater insight on an AI
Right.
side, which is unheard of, because what's also happening is a lot of stuff or the base material is actually open source. So you are building on top of open source. So to that extent, how do I have an insight which just negates the entire open source scenario and come up with something which is just so unique and brilliant? It is that much more difficult. Much rather that open source, I build on top of it,
Got it.
but then that becomes open source itself. Then you can't have IP by the very nature of the licensing, right? So theoretically possible.
Right.
I would think it's a difficult one.
Sure. So tell me about your leaving the tech side a little bit now. What when you were starting up and I guess there was a certain amount of putting together the hardware and integrating the hardware and software together. So you probably needed kind of a facility, maybe not a full-blown like manufacturing production facility, but you needed a office space more than just people sitting in cubicles with laptops. So did you have challenges with that? Can you give us some advice or insights on, you know, how to?
So we are a COVID child.
Right.
First client came during a peak of COVID, and we kind of grew to small level, at least when the COVID was in full swing. So everyone worked from home. We didn't have any hardware requirement. The only hardware that we wanted was Nvidia GPUs, which were available. So we learned to work sitting from home. Even today, we are 3 day work week. Not 3 day work week, 3 day work from office, 2 day work from home.
Hybrid.
Uh, yeah, but one thing that I think we did okay is allow ourselves um, and be okay with making lots of mistakes. We didn't know that we'll be working 3 days from office or 2 days from office, or what do we work. We started with taking a small office space and doing 1 day work from office. Then, as we gradually grew, as there was a need for people to come together, we increased it to 2 days and then to 3 days. We might not ever go to 5 days, but yeah, today that's the model. Then, if we were not started during COVID, or at least grown during COVID, we would have wanted everybody to be in Bombay, because both Nitin and I are based out of Bombay. But no, today we have 30-40% of our techies in Bangalore and 10-20% in Delhi. And
Nice.
we're okay with it. Both of us are here. Our CTOs are here in Delhi, but that's okay.
So the finished, what you provide your customer, is it only software or is it a hardware software combination where they also get a piece of hardware delivered to them? Or I guess it differs
So
case to case.
your hardware will always be there because AI cannot run without Nvidia GPUs, and nobody has Nvidia GPUs. So, for example, if it's, I'll just give a hypothetical example. If it's a warehouse where there are 20 dogs and you need to know how many packets have come in and come out, what we do is we ship a GPU to them. That GPU has our software inside. It goes and sits in your premise, takes the feed from your cameras, and gives them analysis on a dashboard to
How
work.
does this GPU connect to their systems? Like, I'm guessing
The
it's some sort of a box, finished product that you give them that it connects by USB or something.
Yeah, so the GPU just needs to be plugged on. Of course, it needs to have power. Then the DVR and GPU is connected. So CCTVs are connected to DVR or NVR as the case is. The NVR and GPUs are connected. Then these cameras or DVRs etc. have a protocol called real-time streaming protocol. So all cameras follow that. So if you have to access, like for example, if you have a camera in your house, you access that video feed on your mobile, right? So the similar a different type of protocol which exists, which is called RTSP protocol, through which I can run a code. I just need to put in the proper login, password, IP number, channel number, whatever have you, and I will get that feed. And once you get that feed, then it's a coding part of it, right? So what do I do with the feed? How do I create a pipeline with that
What
feed?
about people who have laptops with powerful GPUs? For example, my laptop has a very powerful graphics card and Nvidia only, the RTX 208. So, could I leverage that, or I still have to get the external hardware?
No, so my laptop has 3060, RTX 3060. You can use your laptop. So, two, three things. If you have to use NVIDIA properly, then you need to be on Ubuntu, not Windows. So, of course, you have to do Ubuntu. Then, if you have to create some of the NVIDIA's uh, benefits, then you need to have some of their SDKs that they provide, software development kit, like a DeepStream SDK. You need to do all that. But yes, your laptop would work fine for things like facial recognition, for object detection. You have your laptop on the outside of your gate, and it will actually tell you who is come on your gate. So it will work. Yeah. But there are specific that but this that Nvidia has for commercial deployments.
So, interesting question, yeah. How far away do you see things really like AI dominated, shall I say? So, for example, someone rings my doorbell, I get informed who they are. Like it recognizes it's Job Phillips, and it tells me that, kind of the way on my mobile right now, it recognizes the number and says, okay, it's this person's calling you. How far away are we from that being mainstream? Obviously, in a lab somewhere, something like that is happening already, but I'm talking about like everyone's using it.
So, I'm not very popular with this opinion, but I think the artificial general intelligence, which is where the intelligence will exceed the human intelligence and stuff like that, I think it's near.
It's near.
I think it is near. It isn't. So imagine 10 years back, the big breakthrough was to identify pictures of cat. That is what YouTube first started doing, right? So if you're looking at cat videos, it will propose you another cat video. That was the big breakthrough in 2012. 10 years later, we are here where you can ask almost anything to ChatGPT and it will give you a reply which is possibly at par with what a learned person would do. There is so many developments that are happening. Almost all challenges, all use cases that we think about are solvable today. It is just how expensive is it gonna be, but is it solvable to a large extent? Most of them are. That is on sense to all those kind of things. How do you bring it all together in some sort of things where it functions as well? Can a robot have all those capabilities? That's a mechanical plus software challenge. In my opinion, it will happen. Pretty fast. One bad thing about this is that it is not that you can't control it. All this talks about controlling AI. Most of the stuff has been built on top of open source. So even if you control the good actors or companies who are using it, how do you control bad actors? Because they have access to the same set of algorithms to architecture. To that extent, I really think there would be a huge something that somebody has to manage. And all stuff.
Well, I think for starters, they need a universal regulated system instead of this open source. You have
But are we long past that? Is my
Yeah.
is my question.
Yeah, now it's too late, possibly. But let me ask
Maybe.
this on that note. Now, my viewers would forgive me if I didn't ask this question. But can we ever get into this Terminator type scenario where the machines take over? And, they attack us. So they become almost sentient, you could say, and then they attack us and try and finish us off. To non-technical people, they've been conditioned by these movies, and then they get a little bit worried about things like this. So, I mean, I myself have a technical background, and I don't think that's going to happen simply because at the end of the day, what is AI? It's just code, right? So we just write code that regulates this code and make sure that you can never do this sort of thing. And then, so I think that's how. I don't think that I really see that as a scenario that's going to happen. But what do you say?
Yeah. In my opinion, will they start doing it on themselves? I really don't know. But can you make them do? I think yes. Because when people talk about them not having emotions, etc.
Right.
It's all code.
Right.
When I talked about loss function, like for example, if I say something hurtful, and the emotion that you show is happy, for example, and you are an AI machine, I can actually supervise it and say that the losses are high because you are supposed to be angry or sad while you are happy. You are way off from the optimum reaction that you should have, and plug that in, right? Do that infinite number of times, and then I say something hurtful, you would ideally be angry. So for good actors, they can do that. For bad actors who want something bad to happen, they also have the same loop. They can feed in that this is the emotion that you should be conveying all the time, that you should be angry all the time, for example. And any display other than that, you need to move away from it, right? There are ways of doing it. So when they do it on their own, or whether somebody programs them to do it on their own, and hence what happens, I don't know. But is it doable? Yes, it is doable.
Right. No, I was focusing more on the scenario where the machines themselves learn. So I'm not talking about a bad human actor sort of hacking in and making the AI do something evil. And I'm not even talking about bugs because bugs are bugs. But I'm talking about like the machine itself suddenly starts becoming sentient and all that. I think I really don't see that as a scenario that's really possible.
But there will be bad actors all the time. Who would want the robots to be angry all the time to do stuff what they want to do. So by bad actors, I mean even terrorists, for example. They would want that to happen.
Well, let's see how that all evolves. But I think what we got from you is that it's all happening at a very fast pace. And
yes, exponential.
So let me take a little bit of a tangent now, and we'll get closer to finishing this now. So, how has this whole startup journey affected your personal life? I can say that it's been very, very stressful. It's been very exciting, very rewarding, but also very, very stressful. So, can you share with us how things have been for you?
So I have, there are few tenets, and you can have those tenets for yourself or for when you're starting off. But there are people who want to be stressed, who want to say that anything less than 24/7 work is not great for startup, etc., etc. Maybe true, maybe not true. And one needs to have decent amount of luck in their life to kind of not do that as well. For example, the funding that we raised are from people who are not pushing us to generate revenue every given second. So to that extent, could our life have been more stressful? Yes, it could have been. But are we blessed enough or lucky enough to not have that stress? Yes, we are. Second, do we burn more money? And if we burn more money, then it's a sword hanging on our head that you need to do this. No, we don't. We learn to make money from day one. So to that extent, if when we raise funds, so what is it that we are raising for? To grow faster, right? It's not to plug in the hole. To that extent, you are slightly more chilled, right? That you are relaxed a bit. And what that does is gives much different perspective. I can go tangential, try to explore what else could we do. The opportunity cost of not being abreast with what's happening is huge. If I'm always chasing after the next client, I will miss the trend line, the boat which gives us a step change. For example, anything new that we happens, we spend time. There are people, who spend time understanding how that can be adopted in our businesses. So, what that means is deployment which used to take 3 months today takes 2 weeks. That is because we are not that 24/7 onto it. But that is function of business. That's a function of funding. That's a function of culture. To all those things, I'm very cognizant of that. But no, during my private equity days, I used to work 4 hours, 5 hours a day. Today, I might work 8 to 10 hours a day, and not beyond that. Not beyond that. But am I thinking about it a lot of time? Yes. I'm thinking about how do we make the big leap? How do we grow US? How can we get Shalab onto the business? A co-founder who is based out of US. How do we get an advisory board? What are the people who want and whom we want? Even our technical guys, they are rewarded much better on what is the new stuff that you have done. One third of their assessment is on what is the innovative stuff that they have done. So, yes, it's a mixed bag.
That's great. That's great. So you tied right into my next question, which was future growth. So obviously, growth in countries like the US, Europe, and stuff like that. But technologically, could you speak to where AI is heading in terms of its next evolution? What's the next thing, and maybe what your company is going to do to maybe target that?
Yeah. In my opinion, US would be a huge market. So let's move into 2030. Every single organization will be using computer vision in some form or manner. Because it's actually doing more with more having more humans without costing much, right? So why wouldn't you? So everyone would be using it. Um, then it becomes a matter of execution as well as integration inside, right? That if people are using, say, a large company in India is using, say, 1 unit of AI, they will be using 100 units of AI. Will they be using 100 units of AI with the same vendor, or will they have 10 different vendors? Whom will they go with? Whom do they like? How will they make that call? It's not on cost today because the amount of incremental benefit that today AI can bring in the first few days or in the first few years is high. So to that extent, if your 100 rupee cost is coming down to 10 or 8, it doesn't matter. Who is giving you the 10 reliably, and integrating well. Those are some of the stuff. So my view, more people will come into this business on AI as a service. Um, but somebody who executes it well, who has a client focus, who has customers based out of, who has developers based out of India, those will be few success criteria. I think India has a base for global AI deployment. I think that is a theme.
What about the Indian market itself? Granted, the GDP isn't as high as US, but the number of people is very large here, right? We are the most populous country now. So, um, Wouldn't India be a big market in some way or no?
Yeah, yeah, sure. Today 80% of our business is India. Only 20% is US, or even less than that. Um, the since we are talking about business to business, GDP is a correct measure of what is the potential of India. India's potential is one fifth that of US.
Correct.
Let me put it that way.
Growing
Faster.
Population help or no?
We are not in the consumer business. We are on the industrial side. Industrial side output is actually generated as actually GDP is a measure of that industrial side output.
Because the consumer side, the Google and the Apples of the world are going to.
Yes, we are only on the business side, business to business department. India is a big market, but it is one fifth of US, maybe one fourth of US in few years time, or increasingly closing the gap. But yes, India is a good market. India is much better market than Europe, in my opinion. Europe has its own set of challenges. I think US is a great.
Europe has the GDPR laws, which make things very challenging. At least for my startup, I'm actually not even launching in the EU for that reason. For version 1, I'm not even going to launch.
You are right, and Europe is not a monolith. We tend to see Europe as Europe, but Italians don't work as Germans, Germans don't work as French. It is a hodgepodge. While in US, it is one country with ability to take foreigners' inventions and be okay with it. Have seen so many Indian faces doing stuff in tech that they understand are okay for an Indian company to come and do something. Okay with all that. Right. Europe, for whatever reasons, I'm not that bullish. Right. From regulations to not being monolith to, I somehow don't know why, or I believe that they like Europeans more. I think US and then India, and Middle East to some extent.
Yeah, Middle East is coming up. Even some of the Asian countries like Singapore.
Southeast, yeah. Yes.
All right, great. Job, do you have any last bits of advice for us and for the viewers? Any words for the people who are watching, who are thinking of starting something?
Yeah, not that big on advice, but because it goes against my grain that you need to do it. So whoever is listening to it, I would just say, having an idea and having perfecting it, don't spend time on that. Just get it. Just let it, go, start it, learn from mistakes, improve it, and don't bet your house on the first big idea that you have. Take baby steps, learn from mistakes, come up, give yourself time to make mistakes, give yourself a few months to a year to end of have something which actually works, which customers want. So, and for that, there are certain assumptions inherent here that how do you fund it, etc., etc. That's why I'm saying that it may be a difficult one to kind of actually do. But if you can do that, that is a better way of building business.
Wonderful. Well, thank you so much, Job. That was very, very fun, very insightful, very knowledgeable. I definitely learned a lot more than I knew about AI and the AI market. So thank you so much for joining us. And for the viewers, Job's information and his company's info is down below in the description of this video. So make sure you stop by and look at all of that. And other than that, thanks so much, Job. Hopefully we'll see you again on this podcast.
Thank you so much. Pleasure all mine. Bye.